My name is Michael Esiobu, born in Lagos, Nigeria, moved to Chicago when I was about 5, and then when I went back to Nigeria for high school, and then I came back to Chicago, did 1 year in junior college, and then I went to Lakeland University in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, is where I met Mr. Patrick over here.
Vegas.
And then, yeah, we played football together. 4-year teammate. He actually was my coach 1 year because he graduated a year before me. Before me. Yeah, a year before me. So he became a student. Or were you a GA or actual coach?
No, I was coaching.
Yeah, so he coached as a receiver. And then, you can just tell about yourself before we get into the podcast, though.
Oh, yeah. I was born in Pontiac, Michigan. I lived in numerous places. Like after I had a stint in Omaha, Nebraska for like 4 or 5 years. I had a stint in North Carolina, Charlotte for a year, and then after that moved back to Pontiac, graduated, went to Lakeland. Obviously that's where we met and coached football, played football there 4 years. Yeah.
How would you guys describe your friendship?
I didn't know nobody's ever asked me that.
Very laid back, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talk too much about anything too serious.
No. We're the type of friends that we're on FaceTime for an hour, and it's probably been like 10 words said.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, bro, I forgot why I FaceTimed you. And just like, okay, I'll stay on until you
Sometimes
figure it out.
we play video games if I'm talking to him or something like that.
I play video games.
He's like, I'm playing Fortnite.
But yeah, very laid back, joking a lot, always talking about stuff that's going on, just kind of like the podcast, which is kind of what gave us like the idea of doing the podcast. I would say before we started the podcast in 2021 of June, and before we started, probably like 3 years of like saying we should do this, yeah. But no one ever took action. So one day, we were just talking to Pat, like, hey, just start this podcast thing, and then we both put money into it. So once we both bought the equipment, that's when we knew, all right, we're not just gonna waste our money and to do stuff like that. And I was still early on in my entrepreneurship journey too, as well. So I wanted to do something that I knew that from when we began the podcast, I knew it was gonna be successful, just because I work with other companies, help build up their social medias and stuff like that, and my marketing stuff. And I knew Pat was pretty funny, and then so I knew that it would be successful just by short form clips and stuff like that. And we did like a test podcast, which was just like us sitting in my extra bedroom and no camera, nothing, just audio, just us talking. And it's like, okay, because me and Pat talk for hours.
Yeah,
so
we've been in different situations. I feel like our audience is super diverse, which makes sense because we've been together in different situations. We've been together in Milwaukee, like in the trenches, Milwaukee, and making people laugh, like playing basketball or whatever. We obviously went to Lakeland, which is in Sheboygan, sorry. It's out there in Sheboygan, and obviously here in like the east side of Milwaukee, which is super diverse, and like making people laugh together or separate or whatever that may be. So we knew that like we had something from the get-go. It was about being confident with it, and
and just being ourselves too. Like nothing. It was very seamless because we have these conversations. Sometimes we'll be talking and we're like, stop talking because we should save it for the podcast. Yeah. So we have to like stop ourselves from having conversations about things that we actually want to talk about. Yeah. It's been pretty like seamless trying to do the podcast.
I've heard of that for like reality shows. They don't let the contestants like speak during like lunch breaks or anything. So all conversation is good. It needs to happen when the camera's rolling.
Yeah.
So.
That's kind of.
We still talk though.
Yeah.
But just some stuff we say that might not make the podcast ever.
Some stuff. Yeah. The conversations we have are usually like this can't be seen by or heard by people. So
sometimes like very dark humor.
Yeah.
You know?
Very, very dark.
Tell me a little bit about the name. What was that process like coming up for it?
Terrible.
Yeah, really.
That's probably the worst project. Like everything's been fluid except the name.
Yes.
We were in the Know podcast for a while, and then we looked up In the Know, and it's just like all these no podcast. And then, like, I forgot we were in traffic one day. He was really on it, and because I kind of gave up. And he just starts, it was a day before we were supposed to drop our podcast, and he was just sending me names. But I'm like real like, oh, that's trash, that's terrible. And he's like, what you got then? It's just like.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, there's this other podcast called like Flagrant One, and there's another one. I was just like
Jumpers Jump.
So I was trying to think about something, and I was driving as I was talking to Pat, and I was just like street lights something, and Pat's like Crash Dummies, and I was like, shut up. That's it, nothing else. And like, don't say anything else. We're not gonna come up with any other name. That's the name. And it just like, he said it randomly and it just stuck. And it made some type of sense. Yeah. And it really, I think it was good because it's one of those names where it's just like, it is what it is type of a name. So it's like, no, you tie it to us already. Yeah. But we didn't know there was a band called Crash Dummies too.
Yeah, we were fighting them on Google for a while. Now we got the whole first page show. Yeah. So. Sorry, Crash Dummies.
So yeah, it just very sporadically, it just made sense when I heard it. So, yeah.
How would you describe the podcast?
Very unserious.
Yes. I mean, like the most unserious thing. I mean, like when people call us and if it's a sad story, we hang up the phone. We want to be the getaway for people. Yeah. We want people to be able to come to a spot where there's no wars being talked about, politics, crime, nothing. You get like some basic entertainment news to kind of like help us with our flow. But as far as that, we're light on everything. Like if a star passes away or something happens that's really critical in the world, we might touch on it just because we feel like we owe that to our audience a little bit. But it's like very briefly. We want people to be able to say, hey, when I click this, I get to kind of exit the world a little bit and just purely laugh.
Yeah, and we got some like really cool messages about like people saying how like the podcast is kind of like the escape from like the real world sometimes. Or the best one we get is like when people feel like they're in the room like talking to us and they feel like they're having that conversation. So yeah, we try to keep it very light. We don't, because again, with all the stuff going on in the world, there's a whole bunch of outlets talking about that already. So it's like we don't really need to touch on it because of all that information. And another part sometimes is that we don't do our research into half of those things. So it's like we would be very, very wrong, or it would just be strictly our opinion because we haven't dived deep into those topics yet. So it wouldn't do any service to, and it's just a weird switch of flow too, like from going something like super serious and then laughing the next. It kind of it kind of throws on the flow of the podcast sometimes.
The other big part, we're a safe space. Like I feel like we're the only podcast that jokes without offending anyone because we're for everybody. We're not against anything, any religion, anything that anybody wants to do with their life. We support it.
So yeah, it creates that really cool like fan base where they are part of the podcast just as much as we are as well. So, yeah.
I have to say I deal with that a lot because it's a lot easier when you're a print journalist to get people to agree to an interview than when you're like, can you talk on camera why you hate the president or whatever.
Yeah. We do get a lot of bad ones though. People don't realize that, and sometimes people think it's the same person talking. Say 3 or 4 listener calls make it to the episode. For those 3 or 4, we probably sat through maybe 20 bad ones. Yeah. Where sometimes it could be a really funny story at the beginning, and then it has like a really serious moment where we can't laugh about, and it's like, okay,
can't do that.
We can't do that.
Or it's like they tell a really funny story, and it's like, yeah, I was 13. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. And then, or just like overly vulgar, or just like sounds very fake and overly vulgar because sometimes we can tell when a story is like real sometimes and when it's fake because sometimes people now like, oh, I'm just gonna tell the most random thing that I think is funny to make it on the pod, and it's just like, So we sit through a lot of bad ones. That's probably what takes the most time out of everything.
We think for like, we always keep ourselves at like an audience level. Like, what would our audience think of this? And we make sure like, that doesn't sound real. Or it's like, they're not gonna like that. So we just like kind of, no.
Yeah. And to protect ourselves as well.
Yeah.